Ladies and gentlemen, listen carefully, because this truth isn't soft and it isn't comfortable. Sometimes the reality you need comes wrapped in discomfort, but it's still the reality. If a man says certain words, if his language begins to shift in specific ways, you need to understand something clearly. It's not random. It's revealing. A man doesn't wake up one day and suddenly become disloyal. It starts quietly, subtly, in the way he speaks long before it ever shows up in what he does. People expect cheating to come with noise. Clear evidence, obvious signs, something undeniable. But the truth is, it begins in silence. It shows up in the small phrases, the vague answers, the carefully chosen words that seem harmless on the surface, but carry weight underneath. A man who is hiding something doesn't want to get caught, but he also doesn't want to stop. So he builds a narrative slowly, strategically, word by word, excuse by excuse. First comes distance, not just physical, but emotional. Conversations lose depth. His answers become short, empty, and unclear. When you ask simple questions, he responds with vague statements like, "I was out," or "I had things to handle." But there's no detail, no openness, no sense that you're part of his world anymore. That's not accidental. That's controlled communication. He's not telling the full truth. He's filtering it. Then the shift becomes sharper. When you question something, instead of reassurance, you get resistance. He flips it back on you. You're always overthinking. Why are you so paranoid? Those aren't just defensive words. They're manipulative tools. They're designed to make you doubt your instincts so he can continue without pressure. If he can make you question yourself, he buys himself more freedom to deceive. Understand this clearly. Cheating doesn't begin in actions. It begins in language. It begins when a man learns how to speak around the truth without ever touching it. He'll say things like, "I just need a break," or "You don't understand what I'm going through." And while those phrases can be real in healthy situations, when they appear exactly when you're asking for clarity, they become distractions, not explanations. And here's what makes it dangerous. It doesn't come aggressively. He's calm, controlled, measured. He lowers his tone instead of raising it. He avoids conflict, not to protect peace, but to protect his secret. That's why it feels confusing instead of confrontational. You don't feel attacked, you feel uncertain. And uncertainty is where deception thrives. But don't ignore what your instincts are telling you. Words don't lie, but they can be used to hide lies. A faithful man doesn't need to dodge questions or make you feel guilty for wanting clarity. He doesn't perform. He doesn't rehearse. He doesn't turn simple conversations into emotional battles. When a man is committed, his words are clear because his intentions are clean. A man who is cheating, however, turns life into a performance. Every sentence is calculated. Every excuse is rehearsed. Every response is designed to delay the truth. And before you realize it, you're not in a relationship. You're in a script. Watch the changes in his language. He stops saying the things that once made you feel secure. "I love you" becomes rare. "How was your day?" disappears. Good morning texts fade. Good night calls vanish. These aren't small things. They're signals. Signals that his emotional investment is fading, even if his physical presence remains. At the same time, new phrases appear, ones that were never part of your relationship before. "You're always on my case." "Why do I have to explain everything?" "Can't I have my own life?" These aren't just random frustrations. They are early justifications. He's preparing the ground so that when his behavior changes, he already has a defense in place. Excuses begin to stack up. Missed calls, delayed replies, unexplained absences, all covered with simple, believable reasons. I was busy. I was tired. There was traffic. One excuse is normal. But repeated excuses especially when they block connection and clarity, are not life. They are avoidance. They are a shield against accountability. And when excuses aren't enough, blame enters the picture. Suddenly you're the problem. You're too emotional, too demanding, too suspicious. That's not communication, that's manipulation. It shifts focus away from his actions and forces you to defend your reactions. While you're busy questioning yourself, he continues undisturbed. Then comes one of the most dangerous phrases: I need space. On the surface, it sounds reasonable, mature, even. But when it comes without explanation, without reassurance, and without communication, it's not space, it's separation. It's distance without accountability. It's freedom without honesty. A man who genuinely needs space will still communicate. He will still respect your place in his life. But a man who uses space as a cover will become unreachable, distant, guarded, and emotionally unavailable. That's not reflection. That's concealment. And as all of this unfolds, consistency begins to disappear. The effort he once gave freely becomes inconsistent. The attention fades. The reliability weakens. You go from feeling chosen to feeling optional. And that shift is not random. It's intentional. Because when a man's attention is divided, his consistency cannot remain intact. Consistency is the clearest language of loyalty. When it disappears, something deeper has already changed. You don't need proof from his phone or a confession from his mouth. Sometimes the truth is already visible in the way he stops showing up the way he used to. Here's the reality most people avoid. Trust doesn't break when cheating is discovered. It breaks the moment deception begins. The first lie, the first hidden detail, the first time he chooses to protect his actions instead of your heart. That's when the damage is done. From that moment forward, everything becomes unstable. Love turns into anxiety. Communication turns into guessing. You start reading between lines, analyzing tones, questioning silences. And deep down, you already know something is no longer right. Because before a man betrays you physically, he betrays you emotionally. And before that, he betrays you verbally. His words change before his actions ever do. So listen carefully, not just to what he says, but to what he avoids saying. Pay attention to the tone, the timing, the patterns. Because in the end, a man's words will always expose his intentions long before his actions confirm them. And when those words stop feeling like love, stop sounding like respect, and start feeling like confusion, that's not something to ignore. That's something to understand.